often consigned to the shadows. That was the fate of many Duchesses of York. But history is unpredictable, and some of them eventually became queens of England. So let's find out who these 10 women were in history. Like other titles in England, Duchess of York was granted to these women through marriage to the Duke of York. Traditionally, this title was given to the king's second son. The name comes from the county of York, one of England's largest counties, once known by its Viking name, Jorvik. Created in 1385, the title has been held by 11 Dukes of York in history, but only 10 Duchesses of York. First up is Isabella of Castile. Not the famous Isabella the Catholic, but another member of the same royal house, who lived much earlier. She became the very first Duchess of York through her marriage to Edmund of Langley, for whom the title was originally created. Her life was marked by scandal from the very beginning. She was born the illegitimate daughter of King Peter of Castile and his mistress. Later in England, she faced accusations of promiscuity, with rumours that her third child wasn't fathered by her husband. Her life was fairly short, and after her death, Edmund married Joan Holland, who became the second Duchess of York. Interestingly, and somewhat scandalously, Isabella and Edmund's daughter became the mistress of Joan's brother, remarkably close family ties. It's also worth noting that Joan was about 40 years younger than Edmund, so their marriage wasn't very long. She eventually married 4 times, which wasn't unusual for that era. High mortality rates in childbirth for women and on the battlefield for men, along with the political nature of marriage, made multiple marriages common and unremarkable. Philippa Mohun, Isabella's daughter-in-law and the third Yorkist heroine, followed a similar path. She married 3 times, and after the Duke of York's death, she claimed the title of Lady of the Isle of Wight and governed it effectively. At that time, widowhood was actually quite an advantageous status for a woman, granting her significantly more rights than a married woman. A widow could control her own property and make her own decisions, without depending on her father, husband, or another powerful relative. She also had better chances of remarrying by her own choice. The story of the next Duchess of York, Cesley Neville, is likely familiar to you. She was one of the most influential women of her time, and can rightly be called the matriarch of an entire dynasty. Cesley was the mother of 2 English kings, Edward IV and Richard III. She herself nearly became Queen Consort of England, as her husband, Richard Plantagenet, was the leading Yorkist claimant to the throne, and was in fact the one who initiated the Wars of the Roses. Despite the turbulence of that period, she managed to outlive all of her sons and lived long enough to see the birth of her granddaughter, Elizabeth of York's children, Prince Arthur and Prince Henry, the future Henry VIII. Cesley earned the nickname Proud Cis for her formidable pride and strong will, although in her later years she was also renowned for her piety. Personally, I would call her a true survivor, someone who knew how to maintain neutrality even when members of her own family were killing each other. This little girl became Duchess of York at the age of 6, as that was when she was formally married to her 4-year-old husband, Richard, the younger son of King Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville, one of the infamous princes in the Tower. Anne Moberry came from one of England's most distinguished and powerful families, and she was its last representative and a wealthy heiress, making her an extremely desirable bride. Naturally, the marriage was purely nominal, as both bride and groom were only children. Very little is known about this young girl's life. She died before the age of 9, and all her vast inheritance passed to Richard, who himself did not live much longer, disappearing in the Tower along with his brother after their uncle, Richard III, seized the throne. Incidentally, in December 1964, builders discovered Anne's coffin. It was opened and her remains were examined by scientists before being reinterred in Westminster Abbey in May 1965. Now, get ready for a real scandal. A Duchess of York who became pregnant before marriage, whose 2 daughters would both become queens. Quite a twist, isn't it? Anne Hyde met the future King James II of England while they were both living in exile in the Netherlands, when he was still the Duke of York. By royal standards, she was considered a commoner, merely the daughter of a nobleman. But clearly their relationship flourished, and she became pregnant before they married. When it could no longer be hidden, the couple wed in 1660. They had 8 children in total, but only 2 daughters survived, Mary and Anne, who both became queens, and the last monarchs of the Stuart dynasty. After Anne's death in 1671, James married again, and the new Duchess of York was the beautiful Mary of Modena. When she saw her husband for the first time on their wedding day, she reportedly burst into tears. She was just 15 years old, while he was 25 years older than her, and his face was badly scarred by smallpox. Despite this, they were crowned together in a joint ceremony on 23rd April 1685, the first such coronation since Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Mary also became the first Duchess of York ever to become Queen Consort of England. Mary endured 10 pregnancies, but her children were either stillborn or died young. When she became pregnant again and they expected a male heir, the birth was held in public to prevent rumours. Nonetheless, after she gave birth to the long-awaited son, James Francis Edward, accusations spread that the real baby had died and a substitute had been smuggled in. These suspicions were intensified by the fact that both Mary and James were Catholics, which was unacceptable to Protestant England. The resulting tension led to the Glorious Revolution, forcing them into exile in France. The throne passed to his daughter from his first marriage, Mary II, and her husband, William III. Mary of Medina, called Queen Over the Water by the Jacobites, remained in exile for the rest of her life, dying in relative poverty and never returning as queen to the country where she had once been crowned. James II tried to reclaim the throne, as did his son and grandson, but in the end, the Hanoverian dynasty secured the British crown. Like her predecessor, the life of the next Duchess of York, Princess Frederica Charlotte of Prussia, was anything but simple. She grew up without her mother, as her mother, Elizabeth Christine, had an affair with a musician and was punished by being kept under arrest for 70 years. Quite the start to a story, wouldn't you say? Frederica had no suitors until the age of 24, so her father was overjoyed when the Duke of York, Prince Frederick, the second son of Queen Charlotte and King George III, came to Prussia and proposed. The couple was under great pressure to produce heirs, especially since Frederick's elder brother, the Prince of Wales and future George IV, was at the time in an illegal marriage with Maria Fitzherbert, a union that would later be annulled. All eyes were on them to secure the dynasty, but they were unable to have children. In 1794, they separated but maintained good terms. Frederica filled her solitary life with the company of many beloved dogs. The next Duchess of York might be someone you recognise from my video about the Princesses of Wales, and yes, it can be a little confusing. It's Mary of Teck, the 8th Duchess of York. So how did that happen? As you may recall, Mary was originally engaged to Prince Albert Victor, the grandson of Queen Victoria and eldest son of Edward VII. Tragically, her fiancé died shortly after their engagement, plunging the family into mourning. During this time, she grew close to Albert Victor's brother, Prince George. As the second son, George held the title of Duke of York. They married in 1893, and from then until 1901, when Queen Victoria died and George's father became king, making them Prince and Princess of Wales, Mary held the title of Duchess of York. She was thus the second Duchess of York to go on to become Queen Consort of England. This Duchess of York hadn't imagined a life in the royal spotlight, but fate would one day place England's crown upon her head. Prince Albert, or Bertie as his family called him, proposed to Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon several times. She refused him at first, saying she feared never again being free to think, speak and act as I feel I really ought. When he declared he would marry no one else, Queen Mary visited Glamis Castle herself to see the young woman who had captured her son's heart. She was convinced Elizabeth was the only girl who could make Bertie happy. Only on his third proposal, in January 1923, did Elizabeth finally accept, despite her deep reservations about royal life. After their wedding, she became the 9th Duchess of York, and it turned out her fears were not unfounded. In 1936, King George V died, and his eldest son, Edward, became king, only to abdicate soon after, for love of the twice-divorced American Wallis Simpson. Bertie reluctantly took the throne on November 11th, 1936, as King George VI. Elizabeth became queen. But what a queen she was. She remained one of the most beloved members of the British royal family until the end of her life, living to the age of 101. And then there's the current Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. Although she will never wear the crown of England on her head, she certainly brought plenty of trouble to the heads of the entire royal family, becoming one of the most scandalous Duchesses of York, much like her charming prince, Andrew himself. Rumour has it that it was Diana who introduced her friend Sarah to Prince Andrew. One way or another, the couple married in 1986, and the public quickly warmed to the new fiery Duchess of York. But since Andrew served as a naval officer, Sarah later said they spent just 40 days a year together during the first 5 years of their marriage. In 1992, Andrew and Sarah separated, and that same year, the infamous photos were published showing her lover kissing her toes. They divorced in 1996. Afterward came a string of scandals involving Sarah's debts and allegations that she sold access to her former husband. Still, they have maintained an unusually good relationship, and to this day lived together at Royal Lodge. Who knows what will become of the title in the future? Who will inherit it next? Perhaps Prince Louis, the second son of Catherine and William, will one day hold it. Will there be another Duchess of York in the future? And will she also be a Duchess of Scandals? Which of the Duchesses of York had the most captivating story in your opinion? I look forward to reading your comments. And please remember to like this video.